In this video, we're actually going to make our first use of the purchase order schemas that we had created in the last few videos. So what we need to do first of all is to deploy them, and what we'll do is right click here. Before you deploy, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and click Properties, and here we want to set a couple of things. First, we're going to need, before you can deploy, you need a strong name key file. So we got to go build one of those real quick. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio 2005. Then I want to go to the the command prompt for .NET, and then we're going to run just the SNK utility and create a file called videos SNK. Sorry, it's not SNK, it's just SN is the name of the utility here. SN means strong name. Okay. Actually, what happens is you create one of these and then you don't run this utility for quite a while. Okay, so I got to put the -K command right here. And it says keep header file written to videos SNK. And I just need to copy that file to the right directory, and I'll do that off the video. So I'll use Total Commander here. Here's the file I created over by default in Program Files, Microsoft Visual Studio 8 VC, and I want to copy it to BT 2006 intro here. Okay, so now back to Visual Studio. To get the key file in there, we're going to go back to Properties again. Then down here to Assembly, and then here you can select the key file by browsing for it. And again, that would be My Documents, Visual Studio 2005, then Projects, then BT 2006 Intro, and then there it is. Now generally here in the real world, what I would do, instead of hard coding a specific path like this, I would put a relative path. You know, I'd put like .. // whatever, and that's safer when you migrate this file from one person's computer to another, because in the real world you probably also may not be developing under your personal name here. So that's the key file. Then we need to give it a deployment application. So we make up an application name here like purchase order app. And that's the two main things we need to do. Then I can say right click here and then deploy. Now this is something new with 2006 that 2004 didn't have. You can actually deploy solutions now. Now right now I just have one project, so I'm actually deploying the single project. But in the future, when I put more than one project together into a solution, I can then deploy the whole solution with one click. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking that's what I need to do now, because I actually have two different projects and I do actually want to combine them. But first of all, let's look and see what happened here. So it says that the build was successful. It will automatically recompile it for you if you haven't already compiled it, and then it will deploy it. So to look at the deployment, we go over here to the BizTalk Explorer. If you don't see that there, you can just simply do here View BizTalk Explorer. Then you should hit refresh button first of all. Every time you deploy, you should always refresh this. Give it a minute to refresh. Then you can expand the assemblies, and you'll see here that you now have an assembly called PO Schemas. And to undeploy that, I'm actually going to click here and go ahead and do an undeploy. And what I want to do now is put my two projects together in the same solution. So here's PO Schemas, and I'm going to say File Add Existing Project. And I'm going to take this generated POs and I'm going to add it here. So now we have two projects in the same solution, and we need to save and name the solution. Okay, so here is PO schema generated, and here's PO schemas. And here, let's rename this to PO solution. Now, I also need to go to generated and do the same thing we did with the other one. So actually, just to make sure I have the right, I want to put these in the same application. So When I go down here to deploy, I called it purchase order app. I want to make sure I put the exact same application here. So deploy application, and then I also need to set my key file name here as well, my strong name key file. Okay, and then we're going to do a save all. And let me show you what you can do in 2006 that you couldn't do in 2004. If you go to the solution and right-click Properties, you'll see over here this screen called Configuration. And basically when you say right-click Deploy, whichever boxes here are checked will automatically get deployed. So if you have 20 projects and you only want to deploy 2 of them, you can just check those. In this case, I actually want to deploy both. So now we set that up. So now I can right-click here and say Deploy. Deploy Solution. And here we now see 2 deployed. Go to BizTalk Explorer, click here and then refresh. And now you can see I have 2 schemas. And of course we have not done any orchestrations yet, so that's all you'll see at this time. Now in one of the upcoming videos I'll show you I'll show you the SQL command actually now, but I'll show you how it can come in handy and useful in one of the next videos. So I have a blog called neilwaltersblogspot.com, and it's actually 2005-0101. I've created this SQL command here. So we're going to copy that, and I'll also save it on your CD so that you'll have access to it from the CD that you purchased. But we're going to go open the SQL Query Analyzer, or what they call Visual Studio or SQL Server Management Studio for 2005. And we'll connect to the database that has the BizTalk in it. Okay, at this point I want to do a new query. So we'll get new query. I'll paste in the query from my website, and then we'll just execute it. So one thing you can do that I don't think you could do this before, you can hide this little window over here by pinning and unpinning it. And so now you can see all the schemas that I've deployed, and you can see all kinds of interesting stuff like what they call the message type. And notice the message type is actually the namespace followed by a £, followed by the root element name. Okay, and then in some cases, well, we don't care about that one. Here is the CLR namespace. CLR, of course, is the .NET Common Language Runtime. And in this case, you can also see the name of the project: PO Schema, PO Schemas, PO Schemas, and PO Generated. And in this one, PO Schemas, we had an address as well. So we have PO address here. And then on further, you can see here the root element name, and then the document specification name. So this is very useful if you have especially a lot of schemas that are similar. This can help you debug and find mistakes with your schemas. And then you can also use here like this order by date modified. And then you can see which ones were actually modified today. If we actually add that to the query here, comma, date modified. And so it's really the date deployed in this case. So I could say only show me what I deployed on this certain date. So this command again can be very useful. You can play with it and kind of switch it around to meet your own needs.